Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today we're in the food forest part of my garden, and it is time to start harvesting some figs. Now, actually, when I say it's time to start harvesting the figs, I've been harvesting them for about a month. I live in Utah, zone 6/7, and I have 8 different varieties of figs. 3 of them are about 2 years old, 1 is 4 years old, and the rest are brand new starting this spring. Now, I have 4 varieties that have been producing figs. The other 4 are a little too young to produce at this time. So let's go through and show you which figs are producing, harvest some, compare the tastes, and then show you how I'm going to help my figs ripen a little bit early. Now, I used to live in Southern California, and we had 1 fig tree there. It was a huge fig tree. It would bear 2 crops, an early one that wasn't very good, that's called the Breba crop, and we always waited for the second crop, which was the main crop. Now, as I said, I don't know what the variety was, but it was a green fig. It tasted just like honey, and none of the figs would ever make it into the house. My kids, myself, and the neighbor kids would just devour them all as soon as they were ripe. They would ripen over a few weeks and then they would be done. Now, it seems to be different here in Utah. We have a shorter growing season, and my figs don't generally come out of dormancy until about May. I heavily protect them over the winter, and I'm going to be doing a video on that when I'm ready to protect them. And they seem to ripen a little bit later. This is October, the second week in October, and my figs just started to ripen around mid-September. So we have to figure out ways to make sure to ripen as much as possible. So after we harvest the ones that are ripe, I'm going to go around and show you how I'm going to induce these figs to ripen a little bit quicker. So let's start in my backyard and show you which ones are right back here. Now, this fig tree right here is 2 years old. This is called a Negronne fig. Now, the Negronne figs are a lot like the Ronde de Bordeaux, and some people say that they probably are the Ronde de Bordeaux. But, you know, I don't know if there's any differences because I have not grown a Ronde de Bordeaux. But let's show you what the fig leaf looks like. This is the fig leaf. And in the early spring, we get leaves that look a little different than this. They are not heavily lobed. They do have a rounder shape. And let me show you down below one of them. So this is what the first few leaves look like in the spring. They've got a totally different shape than the ones that come out later. The ones that come out later are a little bit more elongated. Let me show you what the figs look like. So we actually have some ripe figs here, and these seem to take a while after they've turned color to ripen. Now, we are going to harvest this one. It's still not quite soft enough to say it's fully ripe, but I wanted to harvest this for this video. We've got another one down here that I'm going to leave for 2 or 3 more days. So let's pick this one. There we go. And let's pick a leaf so we can compare the 2 later. So we have a leaf. So now we have a leaf and a fig, and let's go show you the other ones. So right next to my Negronne fig, I have one that's new to me. I started it by a cutting earlier this spring, and it did not start forming figs. Until about a month ago. Now, these are 100% not going to have time to ripen, but it is fun to see that it had started producing them, and I really, really hope it does not produce figs this late every year. Otherwise, I'll never get figs off it. This is called Marseilles Black VS, and supposedly it's a really good fig for cold climates with shorter growing seasons. So we'll see what happens next year. This is another fig. This one is an Italian honey. It's going to be a green fig. I started it by cutting last winter, planted it out early this spring, and it has not produced any figs yet. But it is healthy enough and growing well enough that hopefully it will produce figs next year. So we're going to protect it over the winter and see what we can get. This is also another one that's good for colder climates with shorter growing seasons. As is the fig next to it. This is another one that is new to me. This is Olympian. Now, I'm really excited to try this fig whenever we get figs on it. Hopefully it'll be next year. This one I purchased from One Green World this spring and just planted it this spring. And this is a fig that is supposed to taste like peaches. It's going to be a green fig and have a different flavor profile than the other figs. The Italian honey will taste like honey. Marseilles Black will be a berry fig like the Negronne. So this one is looking really good. So I'm excited about this one. This is one of my 2-year-old figs. This is a Ronde de Bordeaux. I harvested 2 figs off of it earlier this spring, and this is another one that worries me a little bit. It did produce fruit last year, but it produced them really late, just like the fruit that's on here right now. These were produced about a couple months ago, and they are definitely not the right size to ripen, but we're going to treat them anyway to see if we can get any of them to ripen, even though they're a little bit young. So this is a very strong berry flavor. It's black like when it's ripe, it's black like the Negronne, but it's a round fig instead of an elongated fig. So it has a rounder shape to it. It also has very skinny, long leaves, just a little bit different than the Negronne. And I haven't noticed this one have different shaped leaves when they're younger. This is also has a berry flavor to it. So I don't know if we're going to get any of these to ripen within a week, but we're going to try it. Now we're in my front yard. This fig is another 2-year-old fig. I planted this last spring, and it produced heavily last year, and it's produced heavily this year. I've harvested more figs off this one than any of my other fig trees. This one is kind of a specialized variety. It was a gift. It was a cutting that had been rooted, and it was a gift from somebody who said that their parents and grandparents had been growing this in their front yard in Salt Lake, Utah for decades, and that it has always produced and ripened every year, and they've not really ever protected it. Now this one I protected last year, and I'm going to be protecting it again this year. I just want to have it really heavily established before I leave it uncovered to see what happens. But we're also going to be picking some figs off this one. The flavor has been really good on these. So here's one that's ripe. Now you can tell figs are ripe. When they are hanging down from their neck and when they're really, really soft. And if you pick them, they shouldn't have any of the milky sap come out of the ends. Now I'm assuming this is probably a brown turkey, because brown turkey were the main figs that were available, for the longest amount of time. They do have a good berry flavor. I'm not a fig connoisseur, I guess, because I haven't tasted hundreds of different types of figs, but this one to me is a really good fig. So let's pick another leaf and put those up with the Negronne so that we can compare what they look like. So now we are in the side yard of my front yard, and we have my oldest fig and one of my more special figs. Now this fig, I call my Sophie Apperson Fig. It's a black mission fig, and it's one, sorry about the shadow, it's one that was grown by a dear friend of mine who passed a long time ago, but she had this fig in her backyard. Then my other friend, Sherry, took a cutting from that fig before Sophie passed and grew it in her backyard for many, many years. And then she took a cutting from that fig tree and sent it with another friend to me here in Utah. So it's a black mission fig, which I don't know of too many that are growing in Utah, and it actually bore fruit this year. Now I already harvested all of them. There was only 3, and they actually ripened before most of my other figs. And I did take pictures, so I'll show you the pictures on there. It seems to be suffering a little bit from fig mosaic virus, which is that yellow mottling, which figs do suffer from it. It doesn't seem to harm them too much. And it looked an awful lot like the Negronne fig. It was very dark, it was elongated, and it was much sweeter and had a deeper, richer flavor than the Negronne fig. So it was really, really good, and I'm really happy to have this. And this will definitely be protected because it's a little more tender than my other figs. This right here is a four-year-old tree, and I have been pruning this tree so heavily. This tree definitely needs to be protected over the winter. We've got I've been gathering supplies to protect it. and I'll do a video when it's time to protect it. But I have pruned this fig really heavily throughout the summer so that it will be small enough to be able to fit under the protection, because it seems to be very, very vigorous and very happy in this spot. You can see the size of the trunks. We haven't had a year where it's died back yet, so it's been really good. It did take a very, very long time for it to pull out of dormancy this year. It didn't pull out of dormancy until probably mid-June, which I thought I had lost it, but the bark was still green, so I just kept waiting, and it threw up a ton of growth. All of this tall growth is new. Produced a ton of figs, but it produced them late, so I haven't been harvesting as much as I had before. It's a very good sweet fig. It's a lot like the brown turkey. Don't know how well you can see that, but we're going to harvest a fig, harvest a leaf. Well, that one has stuff all over it. Let's get you a clean one. There. Harvest a leaf, harvest a fig, and we're going to go do a taste test. So here we are with the 3 figs that had fruit that I could harvest. Now, I think I misspoke earlier. Actually, I've had 5 figs that have ripened enough that I could harvest them and try them out this year. They were the brown turkey, which I think is a brown turkey, the Chicago Hardy, Black Mission, Negronne, and the Ronde de Bordeaux. Now the Negronne I already harvested, so we don't have that represented here, and the Ronde de Bordeaux I only had 2 earlier this year that ripened. So let's cut these open and see what they look like. So let's cut the Negronne open first. So this is what the Negronne fig looks like. It's oblong, it's longer. Compare that to my brown turkey, and it's just a different shape and a little bit different color. It's got a beautiful jammy texture inside. I absolutely love it. So we'll put that one down. Let's cut open the other one. This is the brown turkey, also a beautiful jammy color. And this is the Chicago Hardy. So let's compare them all together here and look at the differences in color, which there is very little difference in color. So as you can see, the sunlight this afternoon is a little harsh, but you can kind of see they're all really close to the same color. So now let's try the taste test. I personally don't like eating the outside skin, so I just peel that off and eat the flesh inside. Now that was a Negronne. It is its first year bearing fruit, and I think I may have picked it a little early, so it's got kind of a melony flavor. And when it has a melony flavor, that means it's not quite ripe. But there are some berry undertones, and it is really sweet. So let's try now the brown turkey. This one is definitely very ripe. Now that one is really good. Because it's not underripe, it definitely does not have the melon tones. It has a little bit of berry and sugar taste to it. Now let's try the Chicago Hardy. I think the Chicago Hardy was the most ripe. It definitely has the berry flavor to it, very sweet, very jammy, and very good. Now, a lot of people say that, like the Negronne is supposed to have a better flavor. So I'm going to leave that Negronne probably on the tree for another 5 days, the one that's almost ripe, and try it again and see if it has a better flavor to it. Like I said, it has kind of a melony flavor. It looks mostly ripe, but it is still a little bit firm down at the bottom end, so I think this one wasn't quite fully ripe. Now that we've enjoyed our figs, we want more. I absolutely want more. So what I'm going to do, I learned this on YouTube. I don't think there's a scientific explanation for why it works, but I tried it last year and it worked beautifully. This is just regular vegetable oil. You can use any kind of oil you want. And here's a Q-tip. What we're going to do is we're going to go to each fig that looks like it's large enough that it should be ripening, maybe even some that are a little bit smaller, just to see if we can have some success, because it can't hurt. It's near the end of the year anyway. As soon as the first frost hits in a week or two, they're going to be gone anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to dip our Q-tip in the oil, and we're going to oil the eye of each fig. So let me show you how that looks. So right here, we have a fig. This is not quite up to the size that it should be, to start ripening, but we're going to do this anyway, and especially because this is at the right level that I can show you close up on the camera. So I'm going to take my oil on the end of the Q-tip, and we're going to add a drop of oil right on that eye. Now what I'm thinking happens is ethylene gas is something that fruits emit that help it to ripen. Apples, if you put something in a sack with bananas or apples and it ripens faster, like avocados, it's because those fruit, the apples and the bananas, are emitting ethylene gas. So I think what's happening is we're trapping the ethylene gas inside these figs and helping them to ripen early. So we're going to do that to each one of these figs. So even if they're too small to ripen, we're going to trap the ethylene gas inside them, and hopefully we'll get some more Ronde de Bordeaux figs, because these are really good. All the way down. There's one more over here somewhere. It's still quite small, but we're going to do the eye anyway. We're going to go down inside my Negronne fig and see if we can ripen the rest of these. We're going to try this on each one of these brown turkeys. Some of them are still quite small, but we're going to paint each one of them. Now, even though we've got a lot of really small fruit on my Chicago Hardy, we're going to paint each one of them and see how many we can get to ripen. So now we're done. We've oiled the eye of each fig on my property, and then we will wait for about a week to a week and a half, finish this video, and see how they look. So hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and if it has been helpful, I hope you like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.